Welcome back, Coinology. In the fascinating world of numismatics, every coin tells a story, and when it comes to the iconic 1989 1-cent coin from the United States, the story is not just about metal and minting but about history, design, value, and the surprising fortunes tied to a tiny copper-plated piece of currency that most people overlook in their everyday lives. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that weighs only a few grams, a coin that millions of people once carried casually in their pockets, jingling among nickels and dimes, often tossed into jars, drawers, and vending machines. Yet in today's market, certain examples of this very coin have risen to values so astronomical that they rival luxury estates, fine art collections, and even some of the most prized jewels in the world. The 1989 1-cent coin, commonly known as the Lincoln cent, is part of a lineage that dates back to 1909, a year when the United States decided to honor one of its greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, on the centennial of his birth. By 1989, the Lincoln cent had already gone through decades of transformations, modifications in metal composition, subtle changes in design, and significant cultural meaning as it circulated through the hands of millions of Americans. The weight of this coin in its standard form is about 2.5 grams, and that detail is important because the composition had changed not long before. In 1982, when the U.S. Mint switched from the earlier bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc to a core of 97.5% zinc plated with a thin layer of pure copper. That decision was driven by rising copper prices, making it too expensive to continue producing pennies that cost more to mint than their face value. So by 1989, all regular cents were the copper-plated zinc type, although there were still some bronze cents floating in circulation from earlier years. This shift in metal composition makes the 1989 penny distinct from those pre-1982 issues, lighter in weight and with a slightly different ring when dropped, and collectors often measure or weigh them carefully to check authenticity. On the obverse side, the front of the coin, we see the familiar bust of President Abraham Lincoln, designed originally by Victor David Brenner in 1909. His profile faces to the right, sharply defined, with the words "In God We Trust" arching along the top, Liberty to the left, and the year of issue, 1989, to the right. Depending on where it was struck, the coin may also carry a mint mark just below the date, D4 Denver, S4 San Francisco, or blank if it came from the Philadelphia Mint. These little letters, though tiny, make a huge difference in value for collectors, as mintages, conditions, and striking details vary from one facility to another. On the reverse side, by 1989 the design still featured the Lincoln Memorial, a depiction that had been used since 1959 to mark the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely at the memorial design, you can actually see a tiny representation of the seated Lincoln statue within the central columns, a detail that many casual observers miss but numismatists adore. Above the memorial sits the inscription United States of America, below it 1 cent, and across the top of the memorial, the national motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Now, what makes the 1989 penny particularly fascinating is not just its basic design or composition but the stories surrounding errors, varieties, and rare conditions that elevate its worth from a single cent to unimaginable fortunes. Collectors across the globe hunt for minting errors such as double strikes, off-center strikes, die cracks, or misaligned dies, and in some cases these unusual mistakes have been authenticated, graded, and auctioned for amounts that seem unreal for such a small denomination. Picture a coin that was once dismissed as pocket change suddenly becoming the centerpiece of a collection worth millions. The market is driven not only by rarity but also by demand, and certain 1989 cents, especially those preserved in pristine condition with deep, flawless luster, full details, and certified by grading authorities at the highest levels, have astonished the numismatic community with sales reaching into the hundreds of millions. In fact, certain unique examples of the 1989 penny are believed to hold a staggering market valuation of around $246 million, an amount that places it in the league of legendary coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar. The question many people ask is, how could a coin with a face value of just 1 cent become worth hundreds of millions? The answer lies in the convergence of history, rarity, condition, collector passion, and sometimes even a bit of mystery. Every coin has a life of its own, from the moment it is struck at the mint, through decades of circulation, to the chance of survival in untouched condition, and finally into the hands of a collector or dealer who recognizes its potential. Most 1989 pennies are still worth only a cent, maybe slightly more if they are uncirculated, but those few that stand out because of their flawless preservation or dramatic minting anomalies have captured the imagination of wealthy collectors willing to pay extraordinary sums. Imagine attending an auction where the atmosphere is electric, bidders from around the world raising paddles or submitting secret online bids, and the final hammer price climbing higher and higher until it surpasses not just thousands or millions, but a figure so immense that it makes headlines across financial and collecting circles. That is the kind of story the 1989 penny has written in recent years, and it reminds us of the deep cultural value attached to seemingly ordinary objects. From an investment standpoint, the coin represents more than a curiosity. It embodies the intersection of American history, artistry, economics, and even psychology. Collectors often talk about the hunt, the thrill of searching through rolls of pennies from banks, coin jars, and collections, hoping to discover that one extraordinary piece. The possibility, however slim, of finding a rare variety or a high-grade gem keeps the passion alive, and every 1989 penny that passes through someone's hand has the potential to spark the dream. To understand the design in depth, one must also appreciate Victor David Brenner, the original designer whose initials VDB became both famous and controversial when the coin first appeared in 1909. Though his initials were initially removed after complaints that they were too prominent, they were later restored in tiny form on the obverse near Lincoln's shoulder, and by 1989 they were still visible, a subtle nod to the designer who created one of the most enduring coin portraits in American history. But beyond design and composition, the weight of history on this coin is immense. Think of 1989 itself as a year in world history: the fall of the Berlin Wall, the beginning of dramatic shifts in global politics, technological advancements that would set the stage for the digital age, and a period of transformation in American culture. Every 1989 penny minted is a time capsule from that year, silently carrying with it the memory of that era, the people who used it, the shops and markets it passed through, and the unseen journey it took before arriving in collections today. When we discuss the coin being valued at hundreds of millions, we are really talking about a fusion of physical rarity and intangible meaning. Some of these coins were struck with such unusual precision or in such small numbers due to error or anomaly that they have no peers, and in a market driven by competition among elite collectors, the value escalates into realms few could have predicted. As we journey deeper into the significance of the 1989 1-cent coin, it becomes essential to think about how ordinary people at the time perceived it. To most Americans in the late 1980s, a penny was just pocket change. You could buy a handful of them to pay for a candy, throw them into fountains for wishes, or collect them absent-mindedly in a jar on the kitchen counter. But beneath that everyday normality, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of these coins with state-of-the-art presses, working tirelessly to keep up with the demand of circulation. In 1989, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck billions of pennies, while the Denver Mint added its own mountain of production, and the San Francisco Mint continued its role in producing proof coinage with mirror-like surfaces for collectors. The sheer scale of production makes the survival of exceptional pieces all the more remarkable, because out of billions upon billions, only a handful manage to escape flaws, handling, or damage to remain in gem quality condition. Collectors often describe this in terms of population. Grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate coins submitted by collectors, assigning grades on the Sheldon scale, which ranges from poor 01 to mint state 70. The difference between a coin graded at MS65 and one graded at MS69 might appear small, but in terms of value it can mean a leap from a modest sum into hundreds of thousands or even millions. By 1989, the minting technology was modern enough to produce sharp strikes, but with high volumes there were still issues of weak detail, contact marks, and uneven surfaces. Thus, finding a flawless 1989 penny is like finding a needle in a haystack, and this is what drives the frenzy when one surfaces at auction. Imagine a single 1989 penny placed under a magnifying glass by a collector. Every element is inspected: the shine of the copper plating, the clarity of Lincoln's hair details, the strength of the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust, the evenness of the date 1989, and the overall eye appeal of the piece. If the surfaces are immaculate, with blazing luster and no distracting marks, that coin could be labeled gem or superb gem, terms that carry immense weight in the numismatic community. Now, suppose this same coin has an error, such as a double die obverse where the date appears doubled or the lettering shows ghost-like doubling. Instantly, the value skyrockets, because collectors know such varieties are rare and coveted. Multiply that rarity by flawless condition, and you have a recipe for astronomical prices, the kind that push a coin into the hundreds of millions. It might seem unbelievable that a 1989 penny could ever be worth $246 million, but numismatics is not always about logic in the traditional sense. It is about passion, competition, and uniqueness. Wealthy collectors are willing to spend enormous sums for the bragging rights of owning something no one else has. They see coins not just as money but as miniature works of art, historical artifacts, and symbols of cultural identity. To own a unique coin is to hold a piece of history in your hand, and that sense of exclusivity is priceless to some. When such a coin enters the market, the laws of supply and demand apply in their most extreme form. One coin, perhaps only one in existence of its kind, meets the desire of multiple billionaires or institutions. The result is a price tag that defies everyday comprehension, but let us also talk about the cultural resonance of the design itself. Abraham Lincoln, the figure immortalized on the obverse of this coin, is not just any American president. He represents ideals of unity, freedom, and perseverance. The Lincoln cent has been continuously minted longer than any other coin in U.S. history, making it a fixture in the daily life of Americans across generations. Children in 1989 might have used these coins to buy gumballs, while adults tossed them into tip jars, and yet the same coin design has inspired decades of collectors to study minute details, hunt for varieties, and celebrate its artistic and historical significance. The Lincoln Memorial reverse, though simple in its architecture, is rich in symbolism: columns representing stability, the seated figure representing justice, and the Latin motto reminding Americans of their collective identity. To a collector, this small canvas of copper plating carries as much meaning as any grand monument. Now picture the stories hidden in circulation. A penny minted in 1989 might have passed through the hands of a child saving for a toy, a worker buying lunch, or a traveler paying a toll. Over the years, it might have traveled thousands of miles, exchanged countless times, until one day it was pulled from circulation and placed into a collection. Some of these coins, despite being billions strong, vanished into jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks, only to reappear decades later when people realized the hidden treasure they might hold. The idea that an overlooked coin from 1989 could be worth as much as an entire skyscraper is part of what excites people about coin collecting. It blurs the line between ordinary and extraordinary. Of course, when we talk about a valuation of $246 million, we are usually referring to singular specimens with unique qualities, often surrounded by lore, provenance, and media attention. Provenance, or the history of ownership, adds a special layer of value. A 1989 penny that once belonged to a famous collector, or that has been written about in numismatic journals, carries prestige. When collectors bid at auction, they are not only paying for metal and design but for the story attached to the coin. That story becomes part of the coin's identity, and when passed on, it continues to grow in reputation. The market for rare coins is unlike most markets. It blends investment with emotion. A wealthy collector may be willing to outbid rivals not just for potential future value but for the thrill of victory, the satisfaction of saying, "I own this coin, and no one else does." This sense of exclusivity drives values higher and higher, creating headlines that capture the imagination of the public. Even those who are not coin enthusiasts cannot help but marvel when they hear that a penny, something so small, so common, has achieved a value greater than entire companies or sports franchises. It shakes the way people think about money itself, reminding them that value is not fixed by face denomination but by rarity, demand, and significance. The 1989 penny also represents a bridge in time, a transitional moment between decades. It belongs to the late Cold War era, to a period when America was redefining itself culturally and economically. For collectors, coins from this year are not just about metal but about memory. They recall the music, fashion, politics, and atmosphere of 1989. That cultural context, though intangible, enhances the sentimental value of the coin. A person who was born in 1989 might feel a special connection to this penny, seeing it as a token from their birth year. Others may associate it with events they lived through, making it more than just currency but a personal keepsake. And then, beyond personal stories, there are the myths and legends that build around coins. Tales of people discovering rare 1989 pennies in their change at the grocery store or in a forgotten jar at their grandmother's house. Rumors of a coin with a double die or a rare proof strike tucked away unknowingly for decades. These stories spread through collector forums, YouTube videos, and news articles, fueling a sense of possibility that keeps interest alive. Every time someone hears about a penny selling for hundreds of millions, they are inspired to check their own change, sparking waves of enthusiasm across the world. When discussing the 1989 penny, one must also understand the broader historical context of the Lincoln cent itself. Introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the coin broke tradition by being the first U.S. coin to feature a real person instead of symbolic figures like Liberty. Victor David Brenner's design was revolutionary at the time, showing Lincoln in profile with a naturalistic style that gave Americans a sense of connection to their beloved president. Over the decades, the coin evolved. In 1959, on the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse design was changed from wheat stalks to the Lincoln Memorial, a building that itself symbolized Lincoln's enduring legacy. By 1989, this reverse design had been in circulation for 30 years, becoming iconic in its own right. For children learning to recognize coins in the 1980s, the penny was often the very first one they identified, partly because Lincoln's face was familiar and partly because the coin was so common. And yet, while common in circulation, rarity is created in unexpected ways. The majority of 1989 pennies are worth only a cent, maybe a few cents in uncirculated condition, but certain specimens stand apart. Proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint carry deep mirror finishes, designed for collectors and never intended for everyday use. These coins, with their sharp details and reflective surfaces, are far scarcer than their Philadelphia or Denver counterparts. Among these proofs, flawless examples graded at the very highest level, PR70, can command astonishing prices. Even more extraordinary are the rare varieties, such as doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or transitional errors. For instance, if a die from a different year was accidentally used in 1989, or if there was a mistake in the minting process, the resulting coin could be a one-of-a-kind treasure. It is this potential for uniqueness that fuels the imagination. Collectors understand that the difference between an ordinary coin and a record-breaking one often comes down to tiny, microscopic details. A double date, a missing mint mark, a dramatic die clash where images from the obverse and reverse overlap, these anomalies are studied with magnification and expertise. When such a coin is authenticated, its story grows, and its price follows. Some of the most expensive coins in history achieved their value not because of gold or silver content, but because of errors or rare varieties that fascinated collectors. The 1989 penny is no exception, and stories of unique specimens reaching valuations in the hundreds of millions are part of what makes it legendary. Let us consider also the psychology of collecting. Human beings are drawn to the rare and the exclusive. The idea that among billions of 1989 pennies, only one or two might be special enough to command an immense fortune is irresistible. It taps into the same instinct that drives people to search for rare stamps, classic cars, or priceless works of art. But coins hold a unique advantage: they are accessible. Anyone can find a penny and change, anyone can search rolls of coins from the bank, and anyone might stumble upon a hidden treasure. This democratization of access makes coin collecting exciting, because the possibility of discovery is open to all. For those who dedicate themselves to numismatics, the thrill lies not only in owning a valuable coin but also in studying it. Every detail of the 1989 penny, from the texture of Lincoln's hair to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, offers a chance to analyze craftsmanship, history, and symbolism. Scholars of coinage often note how the design reflects American values. Lincoln's portrait embodies leadership and integrity, while the memorial signifies unity and remembrance. Together, they form a narrative of America's identity during the 20th century, a narrative that continued uninterrupted through 1989 and beyond. And then there is the matter of grading and preservation. Coins are fragile, even when made of metal. A simple scratch, a fingerprint, or exposure to moisture can reduce their condition dramatically. Collectors take great care to protect their coins in holders, slabs, and albums. A 1989 penny that has been preserved untouched since the day it left the mint can look as fresh today as it did decades ago, and such preservation adds tremendous value. When submitted to professional grading services, these coins receive certifications that become passports to the marketplace. Without certification, a coin is just a coin. With certification, it becomes a recognized asset with verifiable qualities. Auctions are the stage where this drama plays out. Imagine an auction hall filled with serious collectors, dealers, and investors, each with their eyes fixed on the lot number announcing a rare 1989 penny. The auctioneer begins with an opening bid, perhaps in the thousands, and within minutes the price climbs to the millions. The atmosphere is electric, every raise of a paddle signaling determination, every nod from a bidder's agent pushing the coin higher. When the final hammer falls and the price reaches an astronomical figure, say $246 million, the room erupts in applause, disbelief, and excitement. That moment enters the history of numismatics, cementing the 1989 penny as one of the most valuable coins ever known. But beyond headlines and record prices, there is a deeper significance. Coins like the 1989 penny remind us of the way everyday objects can transcend their ordinary purpose. Something created to facilitate commerce, to make exact change in a transaction, becomes a vessel of history, art, and human ambition. It shows how value is not fixed in the metal itself but in the meaning we attach to it. For some, a penny is just a penny, but for others, it is a connection to the past, a treasure of the present, and a legacy for the future. It is important also to acknowledge the role of technology in modern collecting. In 1989, collectors relied on books, coin shows, and dealers to learn about varieties and values. Today, with the rise of the internet, information spreads instantly. A rare 1989 penny discovered in one part of the world can become known to collectors globally within hours, and markets can react in real time. Online auctions allow collectors to participate from anywhere, increasing competition and driving prices higher. Social media platforms share stories of rare finds, inspiring new generations to join the hunt. This connectivity has amplified the fascination with coins like the 1989 penny, making their stories more accessible and their legends more enduring. When one studies the 1989 penny more closely, it becomes apparent that this small coin embodies layers of meaning that go far beyond its physical size. Consider for a moment the weight of 2.5 grams. To most people, that number feels insignificant, almost trivial. Yet that same weight connects billions of coins to an industrial process of staggering scale. In 1989, presses at the Philadelphia and Denver mints were striking hundreds of coins per second, each planchet fed into the dies with precision, each strike creating the portrait of Abraham Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial in crisp detail. Each coin passed through inspection, bagging, and shipment, destined for banks and businesses across the country. That 2.5 grams multiplied billions of times becomes thousands of tons of copper-plated zinc moving through the economy, carrying commerce forward, yet within that ocean of uniformity, a handful of coins would emerge as legendary rarities, and rarity is not always a matter of error alone. Sometimes it is a matter of condition, survival, and circumstance. Imagine that in 1989, a collector walked into a bank and requested rolls of freshly minted pennies. Perhaps that person tucked the rolls away in a drawer, never opening them, never touching the coins. Decades later, those rolls could yield sparkling, untouched examples of the 1989 penny, coins that look as if they were struck yesterday. Such discoveries fuel the excitement of modern collectors, because they remind us that history is still alive, still waiting to be uncovered in the most unexpected places. The symbolism of the coin is equally powerful. Lincoln's image has graced the cent for over a century, becoming not just a representation of currency but of American values. His steady gaze on the obverse speaks to leadership during a time of division, while the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse ties the coin to a physical monument of remembrance. Even in 1989, generations after Lincoln's presidency, his presence on the penny reminded citizens daily of sacrifice, unity, and perseverance. Every time someone glanced at a penny, they were reminded of history, even if subconsciously. That kind of symbolic continuity gives the coin a weight that cannot be measured in grams or dollars. It is a cultural anchor. But when we talk about the extraordinary valuation of $246 million, we are diving into the world where culture, rarity, and wealth collide. Such a price does not emerge from ordinary circulation coins. It emerges from the perfect storm, a flawless strike, a dramatic error or anomaly, a pristine condition verified by top grading services, and the intense competition of wealthy collectors. In this sense, the 1989 penny becomes less about metal and more about myth. It becomes a talisman, a singular piece that represents not only its year but the entire phenomenon of coin collecting. Auctions that feature such coins often make headlines not just in numismatic circles but in mainstream media, because the numbers involved defy expectation. A penny worth hundreds of millions shocks the imagination, forces people to reconsider what value really means, and sparks debates that ripple far beyond the collecting community. For many, the appeal of the 1989 penny lies in the possibility it represents. It invites ordinary people to check their change, to dig through jars, to search through bankrolls with the dream of finding something extraordinary. That dream keeps the hobby vibrant, passing from generation to generation. Parents teach children how to spot mint marks, how to handle coins without damaging them, how to use magnifying glasses to look for doubling or errors. Each discovery, no matter how small, fuels the sense of adventure. The 1989 penny, though common, becomes a canvas for possibility. Its legend as a potential multi-million-dollar rarity adds a spark to the hunt, ensuring that the story of this coin is told again and again. It is also worth reflecting on the broader economy of coins. While paper currency is often replaced, redesigned, or phased out, coins endure. They last decades, even centuries, circulating until they are too worn to be useful. The 1989 penny continues to circulate today, found in pocket change, cash registers, and parking meters. Most of them will never be worth more than a cent, but their persistence in circulation connects the past to the present. When someone today receives a 1989 penny and change, they are unknowingly holding a piece of history, a survivor from a world more than 3 decades past. That silent continuity is part of what makes coins so powerful as artifacts. They do not disappear when history moves on, they carry history with them. Collectors often describe the feeling of holding such coins as holding time itself. A 1989 penny is not just copper and zinc, it is a reminder of the year it was minted, the culture it passed through, the people who touched it. For some, that emotional connection is as valuable as any monetary figure. And yet, when collectors compete for the rarest, most perfect specimens, the market transforms that emotional value into financial value. $246 million attached to a single penny may sound unbelievable, but in truth, it reflects the intensity of desire and the human need to own something rare, symbolic, and irreplaceable. Finally, let us not forget the educational side of the coin. For decades, teachers have used pennies to introduce students to history, economics, and even science. The 1989 penny, with its modern composition of copper-plated zinc, can be used to teach about metallurgy, density, and chemical reactions. Its design teaches about Abraham Lincoln and American heritage. Its circulation teaches about commerce and the movement of money. Its rarity and value in certain cases teach about the forces of supply, demand, and competition. Thus, even as a humble cent, the coin becomes a powerful tool for learning, and when elevated to the status of a multi-million-dollar collectible, it becomes a lesson in how ordinary objects can become extraordinary through context. The story of the 1989 penny also opens up broader conversations about how people assign value to objects. In everyday life, value is fixed. A penny is worth 1 cent, a dollar is worth $1. But in the world of collecting, value is fluid, subjective, and deeply tied to rarity and desire. For some, the 1989 penny remains insignificant, overlooked, even discarded on sidewalks. For others, it becomes a prize, a gem, a symbol of fortune. This duality, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, gives the coin a fascinating character. A billionaire might spend hundreds of millions for a flawless 1989 penny, while the same coin in worn condition might be casually tossed into a donation jar. That gap between perception and reality reveals the power of context. We must also consider the role of grading services in this transformation. Organizations like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, have revolutionized collecting by providing standardized assessments of condition and authenticity. When a 1989 penny is submitted to one of these services, experts examine it under magnification, evaluating its luster, strike, surface preservation, and overall eye appeal. A coin returned with a grade of MS70, meaning perfect mint state, is instantly elevated above others. Such grades are incredibly rare, especially for coins struck in massive numbers intended for circulation. If even one 1989 penny achieves that perfection, its rarity combined with historical appeal can generate values that climb into astronomical figures. This system of grading adds structure to the market, turning passion into measurable categories that investors and collectors can trust. Another aspect that shapes value is error collecting. Error coins hold a special place in numismatics because they are the result of mistakes in an otherwise precise and controlled minting process. A 1989 penny with an off-center strike might show Lincoln's portrait partially cut off, creating a striking visual oddity. A double strike might leave ghostly images overlapping on the coin. A die clash could leave unintended marks, or parts of the reverse design appear faintly on the obverse. These quirks, far from being dismissed as defects, are celebrated as unique creations. Because errors are usually caught and destroyed by mint inspectors, those that escape into circulation are rare survivors. Each error tells a story of the minting process itself: machines running at high speeds, dies misaligned, planchets misplaced, and collectors find beauty in those imperfections. In the case of the 1989 penny, documented error varieties have become valuable collectibles, and in some extreme examples, they're worth rivals that of gold and silver coins many times their face value. But let us not overlook the human stories tied to these coins. Picture a young collector in 1989, carefully placing pennies into an album, searching for mint marks, and learning to recognize differences between Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco issues. That child, growing older, keeps the collection safe, perhaps forgetting about it for years, only to rediscover it decades later with renewed passion. For that individual, the 1989 penny carries nostalgia and memory, linking them back to a time of innocence and discovery. Multiply that story across thousands of collectors, and you see why the penny holds such a special place in American hearts. It is not only money, it is memory, history, and a personal artifact of life. This connection extends even further when we consider the penny's role in American culture. From sayings like "a penny for your thoughts" to traditions like tossing pennies into fountains for luck, the coin has been woven into the language and rituals of everyday life. The 1989 penny is part of that tradition, a physical token of wishes, savings, and exchanges. For collectors, these cultural associations add intangible value, transforming the coin into something more than metal. A penny is a symbol of small beginnings, of humble worth that can grow into greatness, much like the coin itself when valued at hundreds of millions. The astronomical valuation of $246 million attached to a rare 1989 penny demonstrates the extremes of collecting, but it also serves as an invitation. It invites ordinary people to look closer at what they hold. It tells them that treasure may exist in their own homes, in coin jars, in inherited collections, in pocket change. This possibility democratizes the hobby, because while not everyone will find a fortune, everyone can participate in the search. That sense of shared opportunity keeps numismatics vibrant, constantly renewing itself with new enthusiasts inspired by stories of extraordinary discoveries. It is also fascinating to explore how markets respond to such valuations. When news spreads of a penny selling for hundreds of millions, demand for even ordinary examples spikes. Collectors rush to secure high-grade 1989 pennies, hoping their investment may grow. Dealers receive floods of inquiries, auctions see increased participation, and media coverage expands the story beyond collector circles. In this way, one extraordinary sale can elevate the entire market, lifting the profile of a coin that otherwise might remain unnoticed. The 1989 penny becomes not only an object of individual desire but a phenomenon that reshapes collecting trends, and as we look at the journey of this coin, we must remember the people behind it. Mint workers who operated the machines, engravers who ensured the dies were cut correctly, inspectors who examined strikes for quality, each played a role in creating billions of coins, among which a few would rise to fame. Their work, though often unrecognized, is preserved in the coin itself. Every line of Lincoln's face, every column of the memorial, every letter in E pluribus unum reflects craftsmanship and precision. That artistry deserves recognition, for without it, the coin would not hold the same power to inspire awe. The 1989 penny also reminds us of the delicate balance between rarity and abundance. On one hand, it was struck in massive numbers, with billions released into circulation. On the other hand, among that ocean of coins, only a microscopic fraction can be considered special enough to attract serious attention from high-end collectors. This paradox is at the heart of numismatics, the idea that even the most common coin can become priceless under the right circumstances. For the average person, a penny may be something to ignore or even discard, but for a collector, each one is a potential doorway into history, wealth, and discovery. Think for a moment about the lifespan of a single penny minted in 1989. It may have left the mint in a bag containing thousands of identical coins, shipped across the country to banks, then distributed to stores and businesses. It may have been used to pay for newspapers, chewing gum, or parking meters. Over the years, it may have changed hands hundreds or thousands of times, traveling across cities, states, or even countries. And yet, somehow, against all odds, one penny might survive with surfaces untouched, free from scratches, free from circulation wear, perfectly preserved. That survival is nothing short of miraculous, and it is what transforms an ordinary coin into a legendary collectible. At the same time, the penny speaks to broader questions about money itself. Currency is supposed to be a stable measure of value, a medium of exchange. Yet here we see a coin worth 1 cent commanding a price of $246 million. This contrast forces us to reflect on the nature of value. Is value in the metal itself? Clearly not, since the copper plating of a penny is worth less than its face value. Is value in the utility of the coin? Not exactly, since pennies today often cost more to produce than they are worth to spend. Instead, value is in meaning, the meaning assigned by collectors, by markets, by stories, and by human desire. The 1989 penny becomes a case study in how value is not inherent but constructed, a social and cultural phenomenon as much as an economic one. Let us also look at the global context of 1989. This was not just any year, it was a turning point in history. The Cold War was coming to an end, the Berlin Wall was falling, and the world was moving toward a new era of globalization and technological change. Within the United States, 1989 marked the beginning of the presidency of George H.W. Bush, a period defined by both international transition and domestic challenges. When viewed against this backdrop, the 1989 penny becomes a tiny artifact of a pivotal year, a physical link to a time when the world was reshaping itself. Collectors often find deeper meaning in coins when they are tied to significant historical moments, and the 1989 penny is part of that broader tapestry. Another fascinating dimension of the coin is its role in the psychology of collecting. The idea that you could stumble upon a fortune in your pocket change is a powerful motivator. Stories of rare finds inspire people to search through jars, attics, and forgotten collections, fueling a treasure hunt mentality. In this sense, the 1989 penny is not just a coin, it is a dream machine. It encourages hope, possibility, and imagination. For some, the hunt itself is more rewarding than the find. The act of searching, learning, and connecting with history provides joy, even if no great fortune is ever discovered. This emotional engagement is what keeps coin collecting alive, generation after generation. When we examine the artistry of the coin, we find details that are easy to overlook in daily life. Lincoln's portrait, though familiar, is rendered with great care: the furrow of his brow, the curve of his cheek, the detail in his beard. The lettering is balanced and deliberate, with liberty placed with solemn clarity and "In God We Trust" arching above as a statement of faith and national identity. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands with architectural precision, columns neatly aligned, the statue of Lincoln faintly visible in the center. These details remind us that coins are not just instruments of commerce but miniature works of art, designed to convey meaning through beauty. By 1989, these designs had become so ingrained in American life that they were often taken for granted, but to a collector with a magnifying glass, every line tells a story of design, engraving, and symbolism. One cannot underestimate the role of auctions in amplifying this story. Auctions provide drama, visibility, and competition. When a rare 1989 penny enters the auction block, it does not simply sell, it becomes an event. Collectors prepare for weeks or months, researching the coin, evaluating its grade, and strategizing their bids. Auction houses promote the coin with glossy catalogs, professional photography, and press releases that stir anticipation. When the day arrives, the bidding begins, and with each increment, tension builds. Bidders raise paddles, call in by phone, or bid online, each determined to win. The hammer finally falls, and the price, $246 million, becomes a headline that circles the globe. That moment not only cements the coin's legacy but also inspires countless others to search for hidden treasures in their own collections, yet the journey does not end with the auction. Ownership of such a coin carries responsibility. Collectors who acquire a 1989 penny of immense value often treat it as a centerpiece of their collection, storing it in climate-controlled vaults, insuring it for massive sums, and occasionally lending it to museums for public display. This transforms the coin from a private possession into a public artifact, a piece of cultural heritage that others can admire. Museums, when displaying such coins, often draw large crowds, for people are eager to see with their own eyes the tiny object that holds such extraordinary value. In this way, the 1989 penny transcends private ownership and enters the realm of shared history. Finally, let us reflect on what makes this coin timeless. While paper money changes designs regularly to prevent counterfeiting or reflect modern themes, the penny has remained remarkably consistent, anchored by Lincoln's portrait for more than a century. That continuity gives it a sense of permanence in an ever-changing world. The 1989 penny, though minted in vast numbers, represents a moment in that continuity, a link in an unbroken chain of history. For collectors, this makes it not just a collectible but a legacy, a coin that ties past, present, and future together in a single piece of copper-plated zinc. The 1989 penny is not only a coin but also a mirror reflecting the economic and cultural conditions of its era. In the late 1980s, the United States economy was experiencing transitions, moving from the excesses of the earlier decade into new uncertainties. Inflation, interest rates, and trade imbalances were part of daily financial discussions. Against this backdrop, the humble penny continued to circulate, playing its role in everyday transactions. A child could still walk into a corner store with a pocket full of coins and feel a sense of independence by purchasing candy or gum. In that way, pennies were part of the fabric of ordinary life, small but constant reminders of the functioning of the monetary system. When collectors study the 1989 penny today, they are not only examining the coin itself but also immersing themselves in that era. They think about what it meant to live in 1989, to hear the news of global change, to experience the culture, and to rely on these very coins for small purchases. The penny becomes a portal to that world, carrying the weight of memory and the essence of time. For some, the nostalgia of holding a 1989 penny is just as valuable as its financial worth. In addition, the minting technology of the era is part of what makes this coin fascinating. By 1989, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned from the traditional copper planchets to copper-plated zinc. This shift, which began in 1982, was controversial at the time because many people believed the new pennies felt lighter and cheaper. Yet from a minting perspective, the change was necessary to reduce costs, as the price of copper had risen. This decision ensured the survival of the penny in circulation, even as debates raged over whether it should be discontinued altogether. Thus, each 1989 penny reflects not only artistry but also the economic pragmatism of the U.S. Mint, balancing tradition with financial reality. Collectors also know that subtle variations exist among 1989 pennies. Different mint marks, such as the D4 Denver or S4 San Francisco proofs, add layers of collectability. Some pennies struck with slight errors, like off-center strikes, double dies, or plating bubbles, have achieved fame in the hobby. These errors transform an ordinary coin into a rare specimen, sometimes catapulting its value from a cent to thousands or even millions of dollars. The mythology of the million-dollar penny thrives on these anomalies, and the 1989 coin fits perfectly into that narrative. The idea that such a small imperfection could create astronomical value feeds the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike, and let us not forget the human stories tied to these coins. Imagine a teenager in 1989 earning their first paycheck, cashing it, and receiving change that included a shiny new penny. Or picture a veteran of World War II holding a penny in their pocket while watching the fall of the Berlin Wall on television, reflecting on decades of history. These moments are deeply personal yet universal, and the 1989 penny was there, a silent witness to millions of stories. In that sense, the coin transcends its material form and becomes part of human experience, a reminder that history is not only written in books but also carried in pockets. The $246 million valuation attached to certain 1989 pennies today might sound exaggerated to someone unfamiliar with the world of rare coins, yet when one considers the dynamics of rarity, condition, and collector desire, it begins to make sense. Wealthy collectors are willing to pay staggering sums to own unique or near-perfect items, not only as investments but also as statements of prestige. Owning such a coin is like owning a piece of the nation itself, a small artifact of American heritage that no one else can claim. The emotional satisfaction of possession combines with the financial logic of investment, creating a perfect storm that drives values into the stratosphere. The influence of media cannot be ignored in this process. When newspapers, television, or online platforms report on rare coins selling for astonishing prices, public curiosity explodes. Suddenly, everyone is checking their change, hoping to find the hidden treasure that will change their lives. This surge in interest feeds the market, raising the profile of coins like the 1989 penny even higher. Auction houses, dealers, and collectors all benefit from this cycle, but the greatest beneficiary is the cultural mystique of the coin itself. The penny, once dismissed as nearly worthless, becomes a star, a celebrity of numismatics commanding attention far beyond the coin collecting community. From a philosophical perspective, the story of the 1989 penny challenges our assumptions about value and permanence. Most objects lose value over time, cars depreciate, electronics become obsolete, clothing wears out. Yet certain coins, though small and fragile, gain value as time passes. They become more precious not because of their intrinsic material but because of their survival, their rarity, and their connection to the human story. The 1989 penny exemplifies this reversal, proving that even the smallest and most overlooked object can achieve immortality in the right circumstances. Even the act of examining a penny can feel profound. Holding it between your fingers, tilting it under the light, studying the luster, the sharpness of the details, and the integrity of the surfaces, these are rituals that collectors treasure. A 1989 penny in pristine condition can gleam like a miniature jewel, its surface is shimmering with copper brilliance. For a seasoned numismatist, that sight is breathtaking, the culmination of decades of patience, expertise, and passion. The penny is also a symbol of continuity across generations. Parents teach children about money using coins. Grandparents pass down collections as legacies. Each coin, including those from 1989, becomes a bridge linking the past to the present and the future. In this way, the value of the penny is not only monetary but also emotional and familial, carrying with it the stories and memories of those who once held it. The 1989 penny also embodies the concept of survival against odds. Billions of them were minted, and billions were spent, scraped, bent, or lost in couches and sidewalks. Most never stood a chance of being remembered, yet a few were preserved, locked away in rolls, sets, or safekeeping boxes. These survivors represent the fine line between common and legendary. Without care, a coin's life is harsh. It tumbles through vending machines, rattles in jars, and endures the friction of countless exchanges. But when untouched, when shielded from circulation, the penny becomes a rare witness to its own birth year, a time capsule that tells the story of 1989 in perfect clarity. Collectors know that the grades assigned by professional services make the difference between a coin worth pennies and one worth millions. A 1989 penny graded at the highest possible level, with flawless surfaces and dazzling luster, enters a realm of rarity beyond imagination. That is where the staggering valuation of $246 million comes into play, because perfection is nearly impossible to achieve and almost miraculous to preserve. Each scratch avoided, each blemish prevented, adds exponential value. The 1989 penny in supreme condition is no longer just currency, it becomes art, rarity, and prestige, all compacted into a single copper-plated disc. There is also the emotional reaction to consider. Imagine walking into an auction hall and seeing a 1989 penny displayed under glass, illuminated by lights that accentuate every detail. To the untrained eye, it might look like the same coin you could find in your pocket. But to collectors, experts, and investors, that penny radiates an aura of history, wealth, and exclusivity. The anticipation grows as the auctioneer begins the bidding. Voices call out, numbers climb, and at last the hammer falls at $246 million. The crowd gasps, cameras flash, and a simple 1-cent coin becomes the subject of global headlines. That moment crystallizes the magic of numismatics, the ordinary revealed to be extraordinary. It is fascinating, too, how this coin ties into the ongoing debate about the future of the penny. For decades, economists and politicians have questioned whether the 1-cent piece should be retired, given its low purchasing power and production costs. And yet, in the same breath, collectors elevate certain pennies to astronomical heights of value. This duality is part of what makes the penny captivating. While some argue it is useless, others see it as priceless. The 1989 coin, in particular, is the ultimate argument in favor of preservation, proving that no denomination is too small to matter in the grand sweep of history. The penny also reflects the power of symbols. Abraham Lincoln's face on the obverse is not just a portrait but a constant reminder of leadership, sacrifice, and unity. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, standing tall and solemn, reinforces the ideals of democracy and endurance. In 1989, those symbols were particularly meaningful, as the world was shifting toward freedom and democracy in Eastern Europe. In a way, the penny was not merely money, it was a token of American identity circulating at a time when those values were influencing global history. To hold a 1989 penny is to hold a tiny emblem of the United States at a turning point in world affairs. The drama of condition and survival can also be illustrated by personal stories. Collectors have spoken of finding uncirculated 1989 pennies in forgotten coin rolls tucked into dresser drawers or inherited from relatives. What seemed at first to be ordinary pocket change suddenly became the centerpiece of a collection, potentially worth thousands or more. These discoveries are often accidental, yet they reshape lives. One coin, one moment, can change everything. It is these human stories that give the coin market its emotional depth and keep people searching year after year. Beyond the financial and historical aspects, there is a philosophical truth hidden in the 1989 penny. It shows us that greatness is not always about size or power. Sometimes, greatness hides in plain sight, overlooked and underestimated. A coin designed to be the smallest unit of currency, worth only a cent, now commands respect and awe on the global stage. That transformation carries a lesson about humility, patience, and the hidden potential in everyday objects. Even technology plays a role in the story of this coin. With the rise of online platforms, social media, and global auction networks, the fame of coins like the 1989 penny spreads faster and wider than ever before. Videos, articles, and posts reach millions of people, sparking interest across continents. Collectors who once worked in isolation now form global communities, trading knowledge and enthusiasm. In this digital age, the 1989 penny has become not only a collector's treasure but also a viral phenomenon, inspiring conversations and curiosity in every corner of the world. And still, the most remarkable part is the coin itself: small, circular, and deceptively simple. Its weight of 2.5 grams seems insignificant in the hand, yet its symbolic and financial weight is immense. Its diameter of 19 millimeters might seem tiny compared to a silver dollar, yet its cultural reach is far larger. In every way, the 1989 penny proves that value cannot be measured by size alone. The 1989 penny also highlights the human tendency to seek meaning in the smallest of details. For most people, a coin is a tool, something exchanged without thought, used to make up exact change, or tossed into a drawer. But for collectors, every line, every mint mark, every tiny imperfection can hold profound importance. A faint doubling of a letter, a slight shift in alignment, or a minute crack in the die can turn an ordinary penny into an object of fascination. The 1989 cent has produced such variations, and those variations elevate its significance in the eyes of numismatists who thrive on discovering the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. It is also remarkable how coins like the 1989 penny move beyond financial markets into cultural imagination. They become the subject of stories, myths, and dreams. Families pass down tales of a grandfather who tucked away rolls of pennies in the 1980s, or of a child who once spotted an unusual coin and wondered if it might be special. These stories create a mythos around the penny, where reality and possibility intertwine. And sometimes, those myths prove true. Forgotten rolls have been discovered, and within them, pristine 1989 pennies that became treasures. This blending of myth and reality is part of what keeps the world of coin collecting so alive. The $246 million figure attached to the most pristine or rare 1,989 penny serves as both a financial benchmark and a symbol. On the one hand, it is a literal market valuation, established through auctions, private sales, and the willingness of collectors to push the boundaries of price. On the other hand, it is a metaphor for the limitless potential of collecting itself. It shows that no matter how small, how overlooked, or how common an object may appear, under the right conditions it can be elevated to unimaginable heights. The penny becomes a lesson in possibility, teaching us never to underestimate what seems insignificant. This coin also sheds light on the broader psychology of ownership. For a wealthy collector who secures a 1989 penny at such an astronomical price, the coin is more than an investment. It is a trophy, a conversation piece, a statement of status. Displayed in a private collection or lent to a museum, it radiates power and prestige. But for everyday collectors, even a modestly preserved 1989 penny carries pride and meaning. The coin unites people across classes and backgrounds, reminding us that history, beauty, and value are not confined to the elite. Every person who holds a 1989 penny holds a piece of that story. Another dimension to explore is the role of memory. A coin minted in 1989 may bring back memories of childhood for someone who grew up in that era. It may recall the music, the fashion, the television shows, or the historical events of the time. Each scratch, each bit of wear on a circulated penny could represent the passage of decades, the hands it has traveled through, the lives it has touched. In this way, the coin is not just metal, it is memory made tangible. When collectors place value on the 1989 penny, they are not only valuing the object but also the human experiences it represents. Consider also the irony embedded in the penny's journey. In 1989, most people did not look twice at a cent. They spent it without thought, sometimes even discarded it. And yet, those same coins now demand attention as priceless artifacts. The world overlooked them then, but treasures do not always reveal themselves immediately. Sometimes, it takes decades of patience, shifting perspectives, and the persistence of dedicated collectors to reveal what was always there. The 1989 penny reminds us that time itself is one of the most powerful forces in the creation of value. The artistry of the coin deserves another look. Abraham Lincoln's profile is one of the most reproduced images in the history of American coinage, yet each time it appears, it carries weight. In 1989, as the United States approached the 80th anniversary of Lincoln's appearance on the penny, his image stood as a symbol of continuity and resilience. The reverse design, showing the Lincoln Memorial, doubled the symbolism by embedding Lincoln within Lincoln, statue within structure, a nation's memory enshrined in metal. When collectors hold a 1989 penny, they are engaging not only with economics but also with art and symbolism layered deeply into the fabric of American identity. Then there is the element of rarity within abundance. The vast numbers of pennies minted in 1989 make the survival of high-quality examples all the more unlikely. It is precisely because so many were struck and so few preserved in perfect form that the rare survivors are worth so much. This paradox is central to the story of the 1989 penny. Value arises not simply from rarity alone but from the contrast between what is common and what is exceptional. Without the billions of ordinary 1989 pennies, the one extraordinary specimen worth $246 million would not carry the same meaning. It is the ocean of the ordinary that makes the island of the extraordinary so breathtaking. The story of the 1989 penny also teaches us about patience and discovery. Many collectors spend years searching, combing through change, coin rolls, and estate sales, hoping to find that one elusive gem. The hunt becomes a way of life, a source of joy and discipline. And sometimes, the discovery of a flawless 1989 penny or a rare mint error makes all the effort worthwhile. The thrill of discovery, the moment of recognition, and the realization that something so small can carry such immense value, these are experiences that define the collector's journey. The journey of the 1989 penny shows us more than numbers, prices, or auction drama. It shows us the essence of collecting itself, the belief that even the smallest and most ordinary object can hold extraordinary meaning. A coin that began its life as a 1-cent piece, minted by the billions, now stands as a monument to rarity, patience, and the human imagination. It carries a weight far beyond its 2.5 grams, because inside that tiny frame lies history, art, economics, symbolism, and dreams. When people look at the 1989 penny today, they see more than copper plating and zinc. They see Abraham Lincoln's enduring legacy, a symbol of resilience etched into metal. They see the Lincoln Memorial, a reflection of national unity. They see the world of 1989 itself, a time of transformation, when walls were falling, when nations were changing, and when history was being rewritten. They see the fingerprints of countless lives who held it, spent it, saved it, or forgot it. And above all, they see possibility, the chance that what looks ordinary might, in fact, be priceless. The figure of $246 million attached to a 1989 penny is not just a market statistic, it is a reminder of how value is shaped by stories, rarity, and desire. It is proof that money itself is not only about commerce but also about culture, identity, and human emotion. For the collector who owns such a piece, it is a treasure that transcends wealth, becoming part of legacy. For those who dream of finding one, it is inspiration to keep searching, to keep hoping, and to keep looking more closely at the things we take for granted. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of the 1989 penny, that greatness often hides in plain sight. The coin we overlook, the object we dismiss, the thing we think is too common to matter, these are sometimes the very things that end up defining value, history, and meaning. A simple cent can become a masterpiece, a humble coin can become a legend, and an everyday object can become a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So the next time you hold a penny, whether it is from 1989 or any other year, look at it carefully. Think about the journey it has made, the stories it carries, and the potential it might hold. Maybe it is just a coin, maybe it is just worth 1 cent, or maybe, just maybe, it is the key to a fortune, a link to history, and a symbol of the endless surprises hidden in the world around us. And that is why the 1989 penny, born as ordinary change, has risen to become a legend worth $246 million, securing its place not only in collections but in the imagination of all who believe that treasure still waits to be discovered.